The Bermuda Triangle is considered one of the most dangerous places on Earth, where ships and airplanes disappear without a trace. On the opposite side of the planet lies another triangle, known as the Dragon Triangle, which harbors even more mysteries and dangers. The Dragon Triangle is an area where not only ships and airplanes vanish, but other unusual phenomena also occur. Each time it can be something completely unpredictable. Research into this mysterious region involves numerous secrets, evidence, and theories related to one of the most perilous areas on our planet. There is an opinion that if a ship finds itself directly above a gas bubble, it will sink due to the decrease in buoyant force. Incidents involving ships, airplanes, and submarines instill terror in passengers and baffle specialists. What lies behind these disappearances and what will happen next in the Pacific Bermuda Triangle? The coordinates of the center of this mysterious place are 25 degrees north latitude and 142 degrees east longitude. For centuries, this region has been attributed with mysterious disappearances of ships, airplanes, and the loss of human lives. However, this is not the Bermuda Triangle, but an area covering more than 1 million square kilometers, located above the depths of the Pacific Ocean. Joseph Nagy, a professor at the University of California, Los Angeles, notes that the Devil's Sea, or Dragon Triangle, is a region south of Japan where numerous unexplained shipwrecks have occurred. Airplanes have disappeared here, and this place is very similar to the Bermuda Triangle, which is located in another part of the planet. Bill Burns, the publisher of UFO magazine, adds that the Dragon Triangle is a vast body of water that borders Japan and the island of Guam in the Philippine Sea. For thousands of years, seafarers have reported that ships vanish here, compasses go haywire, and strange objects emerge from beneath the water. Interestingly, the infamous Bermuda Triangle in the Atlantic Ocean is located exactly on the opposite side of the globe, at 35 degrees latitude. Beneath both triangles lie some of the deepest areas on the planet, and most of them remain unexplored to this day. Both the Bermuda Triangle and the Devil's Sea are situated at the same latitude. In both regions, magnetic anomalies are observed when the geographical magnetic north aligns, and compass readings are distorted by up to 20 degrees. Researchers believe that this explains why such a large number of airplanes and ships go missing in these areas. Kenichi Tsusako, a representative of the Asahi television channel, emphasizes that it was interesting to see that both triangles are located in the same place. The boundaries of the Dragon Triangle are believed to extend from central Japan to Guam and the Mariana Islands. Although this location is less known in the West than the Bermuda Triangle, unexplained disappearances and strange phenomena occur here alarmingly often. It is estimated that after the Second World War, more than 1,500 ships and hundreds of military transport and civilian aircraft disappeared in this area. Lauren Coleman, the author of the book Mysterious America, claims that far more ships have vanished in the Dragon Triangle than in the Bermuda Triangle, and these were primarily large military vessels or cargo ships. She finds it strange that the Bermuda Triangle is covered in the press much more extensively than the Dragon Triangle, and questions why this is the case. The notorious reputation of the Dragon Triangle became known to the general public in 1989 when Charles Berlitz's book, The Dragon Triangle, was published. Earlier in 1974, Berlitz wrote the book The Bermuda Triangle, which lifted the veil of mystery over this location. For many years, he studied reports of ship and aircraft disappearances in the Dragon Triangle, as well as eyewitness accounts of encounters with UFOs. According to his research, compasses in this region often malfunction or provide incorrect data. Ships and airplanes in this mysterious area often deviate from their course in a matter of seconds. Encounters with ghost ships have been reported for over 100 years, and hundreds of vessels, airplanes, and even submarines have sunk here without sending a distress signal. One of the most horrifying cases investigated by Charles Berlitz was the disappearance of the legendary aviator Amelia Earhart. In 1937, she vanished, confronted by unseen and unknown forces. Having flown more than 2/3 of the way around the globe, which amounts to over 35,000 kilometers, she transmitted her last radio message, "I will be glad when we finally leave it behind," referring to the course eastward across the Pacific Ocean. Amelia Earhart took off from Guam, and rumors circulated that she was spying on the United States. On that day, the 2nd of July, 1937, at 12:30, she and her navigator Fred Noonan took off from New Guinea, completing their round-the-world flight. They were to fly 4,000 kilometers to Howland Island for refueling. Their route lay through the Dragon Triangle. No one ever saw them again. The compass and instruments of her airplane failed, and after that the plane disappeared without leaving any distress signals. The disappearance of Earhart remains one of the most mysterious enigmas in the history of aviation. The Dragon Triangle is also associated with legends of ghost ships that appear from the fog. Berlitz connects one of the greatest mysteries of this region with enormous ships sailing the sea without people, cargo, or rigging. The writer claims that these crewless floating vessels have appeared here for centuries. In Japanese culture, such ships are usually associated with evil and can doom living people. Ghost ships, displacing over 100,000 tons, helplessly drift in the Dragon Triangle. If this is true, how can an entire crew vanish without a trace? In his book, Berlitz describes several eerie encounters with ghost ships. One such encounter occurred on the 11th of June, 1881, when the English warship Betchant collided with the legendary glowing Flying Dutchman in the deepest part of the Dragon Triangle. Fleet Lieutenant Prince, who later became King George V, recorded in the ship's log, "The Flying Dutchman passed right in front of us. The vessel emitted a strange phosphorescent light, like all ghost ships. When we approached, there were no signs of the ship's existence either near us or on the horizon. The night became clear and the sea calm." In January 1989, according to Berlitz, on a dark, quiet night, the Japanese whaling ship captained by Moro Sagakami came within 15 meters of a small fishing trawler that was bobbing on the waves. The captains and several crew members discovered the vessel without people or cargo, with only the corpse of the captain remaining, still gripping the helm. Speaking of ghost ships, it is possible that the crew members were abducted, and therefore the vessel continued to sail at the mercy of the waves. According to Berlitz's research, dozens of ships have vanished from radar range, disappearing in the triangle without a trace. On the 19th of April 1949, the vessel Kuroshimaru disappeared with 23 people on board. On the 8th of June 1952, 29 crew members of the trawler Chifukumaru went missing. On the 26th of June 1955, an American military aircraft F-3B lost radio contact with its base, and both pilots disappeared. On the 12th of March 1957, 8 crew members of the KB-50 refueling aircraft went missing. On the 7th of June 1963, the remains of the vessel Donan Maru were found on the surface of the ocean near Sheo Namazaki. One incident has forever remained in Japanese history: the mysterious demise of the research vessel Kaiyu Maru. Zoyo Osaka, a professor, recounts that the Kaiyu Maru was a coastal defense ship conducting research in the Dragon Triangle. On the 24th of September 1952, this vessel, belonging to the Maritime Safety Agency, entered this enigmatic region with the aim of investigating the reasons for the disappearance of ships. Suddenly, without sending distress signals, the Kaiyu Maru vanished forever, along with a crew of 22 sailors and 9 scientists. In March 1953, the Coast Guard released an official report stating the necessity to investigate when, where, and why the vessel went missing, as there were no living witnesses to the incident. Many believe that the ship fell victim to an underwater volcanic eruption, but others remain skeptical. Ironically, the vessel that set out to search for other ships also disappeared. This often happens in these mysterious triangles. Due to the significant nature of this event, there exists a memorial in Tokyo today dedicated to those lost in this enigmatic shipwreck. It is commonly believed that both the Bermuda and Dragon Triangles in the Pacific Ocean disrupt the so-called space-time continuum of planet Earth. This inexplicable phenomenon causes aircraft to be thrown off course and onboard clocks to change time. Loren Coleman, the author of Mysterious America, notes that according to some theories, the Dragon Triangle is an anomalous zone where magnetic anomalies exist and even a black hole related to outer space. However, she states that all that is known is that something strange occurs there and we do not know exactly what it is. In the late 1950s, the famous American television and radio broadcaster Arthur Godfrey, an experienced pilot, found himself in a terrible situation in the Dragon Triangle that nearly cost him his life. At the time, he was piloting a twin-engine aircraft through this mysterious region. He saw an unidentified underwater object. Fuel was running low, instruments failed, and he had to navigate by the sun. When the instruments came back to life, he experienced the same thing as many others here. Somehow he had fallen behind in time. With enough fuel for 3 hours, Gottfried flew according to navigation calculations. After 1 hour, the instruments revived, and he was able to return to course. However, he later reported that he had inexplicably lost half an hour. The hands of his watch literally turned back by themselves. Fortunately for Gottfried and his crew, they managed to reach Tokyo and avoid the terrible fate of Amelia Earhart and many other people. Such cases in the Triangle were also reported by military pilots in the 50s and 60s. For example, Frank Hopkins from the 106th Transport Aviation Group wrote a letter to the magazine Argosy in the summer of 1968 about space-time anomalies during his flight through the Dragon Triangle on a C-97 aircraft. He recalls, "In the spring of 1966, I was the navigator aboard a C-97 observation plane that took off from Kwajalein Island and set a course for Guam. We were all looking forward to a pleasant night flight." Hopkins states that according to protocol, he plotted the aircraft's position on a map every hour using astronomical navigation, but during the 3rd hour of flight, something inexplicable happened. I determined the position for the 2nd time. The weather was beautiful. The only problem was that when I determined this 2nd point, it turned out that we had deviated from the intended course by almost 630 kilometers. He checked and rechecked and found that his old C-97 had somehow covered 630 kilometers in just 1 hour. Later, upon landing in Guam, Hopkins informed the duty officer that his aircraft had jumped hundreds of kilometers ahead on course, but his reports were ignored. Hopkins insists that he is completely convinced of the existence of special forces hidden in the Dragon Triangle, which pose a serious threat to aircraft and ships. Experts studying events in this region have concluded that unknown forces may lie deep beneath the triangle. Among all the anomalies of the Dragon Triangle, the most mysterious is the frequent appearance of UFOs. In his book Dragon Triangle, Charles Berlitz points out that the most likely causes of disasters in this area are related to UFOs and their underwater allies, unidentified submerged objects. He notes, many ships have disappeared in the Dragon Triangle because they were sunk by UFOs. In ancient times, such events were often explained by evil spirits or dragons. The Japanese, influenced by Chinese culture, firmly believed in dragons that, in their opinion, inhabited the sea and could surface, bringing both good fortune and misfortune. Fred Nod Helper from the University of California emphasizes that Japanese ufologists and researchers such as Berlitz believe that the ghosts from the Triangle, previously perceived as monsters and dragons, were actually UFOs. Zunichiro Kato, the director of the UFO study group, shares his observations. When we studied this region, we found many interesting, scientifically speaking, reasons for the incidents that we can definitely call mystical. He recounts a report received from a fishing boat in the Sea of Japan, where fishermen saw a huge UFO flying from one side to the other, as well as noticing lights in the ocean. Kato, who has been studying this phenomenon for almost 20 years, claims that he has managed to capture more than 100 and perhaps more than 200 photographs of UFOs. He recalls, "I photographed UFOs every time I saw them, and this happened twice a month." In particular, on the 14th of June 1997, he took a picture of a fast-moving glowing disc that was flying at a speed of more than 800 kilometers per hour over the waters of Tokyo Bay. "I photographed 3 UFOs that were flying over the ocean near Tokyo Disneyland. These 3 UFOs formed a triangle and flew away in that formation," he adds. 10 people witnessed this, however. There was no report in the Tokyo news. Kato is not the only Japanese person striving to convey information about UFOs flying over the Dragon Triangle. Masanobu Miyoshi, the publisher of a Tokyo magazine, witnessed a UFO in 1990 while relaxing on a beach 50 kilometers from Tokyo. "I saw an airplane that was flying somewhere and then something white appeared next to it," he recalls. This something was moving at a speed of 1 kilometer per second and was performing figures in the shape of the letter W. "I thought it was a UFO, although I did not believe in them before. Now I believe that UFOs exist." This supernatural encounter left an indelible impression on him. Throughout the 20th century, eyewitness accounts transitioned from fishermen's tales to official military reports. After the Second World War, the Soviet Union possessed the largest active fleet in the northern part of the Pacific Ocean, and sailors from these ships reported sightings of UFOs in the Dragon Triangle for a long time. Ufologist Vladimir Ajhaja notes that unidentified flying objects continue to be observed in all oceans and seas. To investigate for the Naval Command and organize scientific research on the hydrospheric aspect of the UFO problem. On the 18th of August 1980, after receiving a message from Moscow from ufologist Vladimir Ajhaja, the Russian research vessel Vladimir Vorobyov rounded Japan from the southern side and headed through the Dragon Triangle towards Okinawa. Immediately after midnight, a cylindrical metallic object unexpectedly rose slowly from the sea. It hovered for several seconds and then rapidly soared into the sky. The fact that this object hovered led Ajhaja and other specialists to believe that it was not man-made. To this day, this incident remains shrouded in mystery. 8 months later, on the 17th of April, 1981, another similar incident occurred in the same place. One of the most recent and exciting cases happened in 1981 when the crew of the vessel Taki Kyoto Maru noticed a UFO, more precisely an underwater object, flying out of the water. On the 17th of April 1981, it was a clear day and the sea was calm. The Japanese freighter Taki Kyoto Maru was sailing 200 miles from Kanazawa. There were more than 30 people on board. Suddenly, the crew felt the ship shake. The sailors immediately assumed that something had struck the vessel. The Japanese ship encountered an underwater object in the Dragon Triangle that rapidly flew out of the water and created huge shock waves that affected the ship. At the helm was Captain Usuda when a bright saucer-shaped object rose from the water. The diameter of the underwater object exceeded 15 meters, and it hovered silently. The ship's instruments, including compasses, sensors, and the engine, failed at the moment the underwater object began to circle around the vessel. The captain believes that the object was above them for about a quarter of an hour before it dove back into the water. The waves were so strong that, according to the captain, the ship nearly capsized, and when the underwater object finally dove, the rolling became even more intense. The astonishing thing is that when the instruments started working again, the captain checked the time on the radio and found that the ship's clock showed 15 minutes less. Reports of sightings of Anello gliding above ships in the Dragon Triangle are not new. According to ufologist Tsuneshiro Nirasawa, the Japanese research vessel Kaiomaru has a rich history of encounters with UFOs. Launched in 1967, this vessel became the largest in the Ministry of Agriculture, with a displacement of more than 2,500 tons. Kaiomaru was also considered one of the most equipped research vessels of its time. There are known cases in 1984 and 1986 when the research vessel was pursued by a UFO. At least 9 scientists on board, including researcher Mikio Naganobu, witnessed these astonishing events. In December 1984, Mr. Naganobu was in the Falkland Islands, located at the southern tip of the American continent. Junichiro Nirasawa, ufologist. At night, he saw more than 20 glowing objects floating across the sky, which then suddenly scattered in different directions. The second incident involving the crew of Kaiomaru occurred 2 years later, in 1986, but this time in the Dragon Triangle. A huge UFO, according to eyewitnesses, shaped like a cigar and over 30 meters long, quickly approached the vessel and then submerged into the water. According to Mr. Naganobu, a second encounter with a UFO occurred in 1986 in the Sea of Japan. The enormous UFO approached the vessel and had a cigar-shaped form. The only thing the crew saw was a small red light that slowly faded away, but this time the UFO was visible on radar. In September 1988, a detailed article about these unusual events was published in the Japanese edition of Scientific American magazine. Scientific American magazine reported on the strange occurrences in the Dragon Triangle, emphasizing the significance of these events as an official report from a government research vessel. Information about strange phenomena comes not only from sailors. After the disappearance of Amelia Earhart, pilots realized that the sky above the triangle is as treacherous as the ocean below. One of the most illustrative incidents was the close encounter of an unidentified flying object with a Convert 240 aircraft from TOW Airlines. In March 1965, at 1906, Captain Yoshiharu Inaba, an experienced pilot, while over the triangle, reported to the Tamakazu dispatcher about the approach of an unknown elongated vessel. At a speed of 800 kilometers per hour, Inaba sharply turned 60 degrees to avoid a collision. The object stopped and then flew alongside the airliner. The captain described the UFO as a shadowy vessel approximately 15 meters long, emitting a greenish light. Several witnesses observed this event from Earth. At that time, the pilot of another aircraft, a Piper Apache, intercepted Captain Inaba's message, and at 22:07 Greenwich Mean Time saw the same UFO heading east towards Osaka in the direction of the Dragon Triangle. Dispatcher Akira Taguchi, who was on duty during Inaba's report, later confirmed that the object was visible above the mountains near Hiroshima and around Shikoku Island. On the same day, engineers working in the mountains also reported sightings of objects resembling flying saucers. Despite the facts, no one knows exactly what this object was. For thousands of years, people have created legends about a dragon living in the Dragon Triangle that emerges from the water and pulls people into the depths. One of the earliest mentions of UFOs occurred in Japan, where unidentified flying objects were first depicted. The legend of Utsura Bune, a mysterious extraterrestrial woman who appears from the Pacific Ocean in a round, vessel-like ship, has existed for hundreds of years. In one of the drawings, a flying object in the shape of a saucer is depicted, resembling those described by witnesses in the 20th century. These drawings are considered some of the first mentions of UFOs. Historical documents contain a tale of a metallic ship resembling a cup that docked at the shore of Hirotonahama. People approached and peered inside, where they saw a woman in smooth, light clothing. The ship bore inscriptions that no one could read. This may be one of the earliest descriptions of a UFO in Japan, especially considering that at that time there were no round vessels in the country. Dr. Katsuotaka, a professor at Gifu University, expressed doubt that people could have imagined such a shape for a ship 200 years ago. He began studying the legend of Utsura Bune in 1997, and his investigation led to the question of whether the mysterious woman emerging from the waters of the Pacific Ocean was connected to the Third World. The professor gathered information about all ships from 200 years ago, but found none that resembled saucers or Utsura Bune. This raises astonishment and calls into question familiar notions. Since the beginning of the 19th century, Japan has experienced a boom in Utsura Bune drawings, and artists across the country have depicted the same mysterious woman emerging from a terrifying, saucer-like ship. The tale of Utsura Bune has become very popular, and the professor found 5 different illustrations, which only adds to the strangeness of this mysterious story. The riddle associated with Utsura Bune remains unsolved. The question of why the Japanese created numerous illustrations dedicated to this mythical creature is intriguing. Perhaps in Japan, which remained closed to the outside world until 1857, there were mass sightings of UFOs. Some researchers believe that the legends of Utsura Bune hold the key to modern UFOs. The mysteries of the sea permeate Japanese culture and history. Since ancient times, the Japanese have created legends about UFO sightings in the Dragon Triangle. For instance, on the 24th of September in the year 1235, strange lights appeared in the sky over General Yoritsumi's camp in Kyoto, causing terror among the soldiers. They concluded that dragons had emerged from the sea and were about to attack. 40 years later, two disasters were forever etched in history, establishing the reputation of the Dragon Triangle as a deadly region. The accounts of the Triangle of Devils and the events that took place there correspond to the Japanese attitude towards the sea, its dangers, and the supernatural beings that can either protect or attack those who live off the gifts of the sea, such as fishermen. In the year 1274, Kublai Khan, the ruler of the Mongol Empire, gathered a massive army of more than 900 ships to conquer Japan. Victory seemed certain until a hurricane struck, destroying the Mongol army. Hiroshi Tomita, a researcher from the Japanese National Research Institute, notes that the Mongols ruled half of Europe and all of Asia, but their attempt to capture Japan ended in disaster. More than half of the fleet sank in the storm, claiming the lives of around 20,000 Mongols. In the year 1281, the Khan launched another larger attack on Japan, this time with an army of 140,000 men and 3,000 ships. However, once again, the Mongols faced calamity. It is estimated that 70,000 warriors perished and all the ships sank. The second invasion attempt also failed, and the Japanese attributed their victory to the blessed wind, which they called divine wind. Ryutaro Monokami, a ufologist, claims that it was this wind that saved Japan during the Mongol invasion. Experts and historians still wonder whether the actions of the divine wind in this anomalous zone were a result of the gods' favor towards Japan, or if it was a strange meteorological phenomenon. James Murakami from the University of California emphasizes that nature has prevented two invasions, and this resembles the legend of celestial forces protecting Japan. However, researchers fear that during Japan's self-isolation, a multitude of data for studying UFOs was lost. It was only in the 19th century that reports of UFO sightings began to appear more frequently. American authorities, who helped open Japan's doors to the West, found themselves embroiled in an unresolved mystery related to the existence of UFOs in the Dragon Triangle. On the 8th of July, 1853, at 4 in the morning, Commander Matthew Perry, having left a hurricane in Tokyo Bay, witnessed an unusual object in the sky. He recorded in his ship's log, "When I stood watch between midnight and 4 in the morning, I clearly saw a meteor. It appeared in the southwest, its light spread everywhere." The rigging, sails, and hulls of the ships, as well as our ship, reflected its light, and it seemed as if they themselves were glowing. The object, by his description, did not resemble a meteor. It was something more sinister. In shape, it was like a large blue sphere with a red wedge-shaped tail. In the sky above the Dragon Triangle, glowing particles shone brightly, resembling sparks ejected from a rocket nozzle after launch. Japanese ufologists are convinced that Commodore Perry, during his journey, witnessed a UFO in the very center of this mysterious region. When the Americans approached the Japanese government for permission to trade, they recounted their observations. Perry managed to record his impressions in a travel diary while his ship sailed from Uraga. Other crew members also confirmed that they had seen a UFO. However, despite all efforts, Berry, who continued the investigation, died in 1858 without uncovering the mystery. 3,000 years ago, people believed that two enormous dragons were hiding in this place. This sea was named the Sea of Devils, and many ships disappeared here, the reasons for which remain unknown. Stephen Greer, the author of the book Disclosure, emphasizes, "We have noticed that in the volcanic belt of the Pacific Ocean around Japan, there is an increase in UFO activity before and after seismic events. The Dragon Triangle is located above one of the most seismically active zones on the planet, where gigantic underwater tectonic plates are constantly moving, and underwater volcanic eruptions occur with enviable regularity." Lieutenant Commander Edward Arufa of the United States 7th Fleet notes, "In the United States, we constantly receive information about volcanic activity, and we know exactly where eruptions are occurring." He adds that if he checks his email, he will see messages about the seismic activity of one of the volcanoes and recommendations to stay away from it. If there is an underwater eruption depending on the depth, you may see lava flows on the surface or gas with magma forming bubbles, explains John Stock, a professor of geology and geophysics at the California Institute of Technology in Pasadena. He continues, such an eruption, even if you do not see it, can destroy a ship. A vessel can sink due to increased gas content in the water. Gases released from underwater volcanoes can lead to the demise of not only small vessels, but also large container ships and bulk carriers. If a ship is directly above a large gas bubble at the moment it rises to the surface, the vessel will sink, as the buoyant force will decrease, and the ship will not be able to stay afloat. The volcanic belt within the Dragon Triangle consists of dangerous volcanoes located at various depths. The shallowest of them are volcanic islets that lie below sea level. Rachel Harmon from the University of California notes, many would be genuinely surprised to learn that the majority of eruptions on the planet occur on the ocean floor. Daquez, also from the University of California, adds, the bottom of the Pacific Ocean moves from east to west, and as it compresses, water collides with hot rock, forming volcanoes. Ken McDonald, another scientist from the University of California, warns that the volcanoes around the Mariana Islands can emit aerosols and solid particles that reach the stratosphere, creating hazardous conditions for aircraft. Another threatening phenomenon of the Dragon Triangle is the so-called rogue waves. Tetsuo Asaki, captain of the vessel Dampi Amaru, describes, large waves 2 to 3 meters high crash onto the ship from different sides, creating massive waves over 20 meters high. This is the most dangerous phenomenon I have ever seen. Dr. Hiroshi Tomita from the Japan Institute of the Sea explains that Japan is located in a region where strong seasonal winds blow. In winter, frequent bad weather and turbulence are observed. Winds blowing from different directions create rogue waves which represent a dangerous phenomenon. Professor Takudzi Waseda from the University of Tokyo adds that the term triangular wave, known in Japanese as Sankango Nomiya, has ancient roots. However, from a scientific perspective, the nature of this phenomenon remains a mystery. Together, they conducted a unique experiment in the largest wave pool in the world to demonstrate the destructive power of triangular waves and currents characteristic of this region. A message from an American ship reported the observation of a wave over 30 meters high, although its size was estimated only by sight, without scientific confirmation. Dr. Tomita notes that his team aims to measure the waves scientifically using 32 pistons, the amplitude of whose phase oscillations is controlled by a computer. During the test, the force of the waves can be scaled, and a similar phenomenon can be observed in the open ocean. Professor Waseda illustrates the nature of triangular waves, explaining that when two waves collide, the wave trace forms a triangle. When a ship encounters such waves, its movement becomes unpredictable, which can lead to dangerous situations, including vortices that pose a threat to vessels. The energy of triangular waves accumulates, and their amplitude can be very high due to intersecting waves. The inability to predict the direction of force application creates enormous risks for ships. These triangular waves have caused numerous shipwrecks and human casualties in the area of the Dragon Triangle. Dr. Tomita believes that this scientific technology resembles a puzzle picture in which there is no room for UFOs. He emphasizes that this is a dangerous area, but cannot determine whether the incidents are the result of volcanic activity, natural causes, or some mysterious UFOs. For hundreds of years, reports of disappearances in the Dragon Triangle and eerie encounters with UFOs have been coming in. This place is compared to its mysterious Bermudian counterpart, and many researchers call it a dangerous zone, the Pacific Bermuda Triangle. Hiroshi Yamamoto, a journalist and writer, shares his opinion. I have read all the reports and believe that many people have seen UFOs but do not talk about it. He adds that some refuse to believe it until they see it with their own eyes, but emphasizes that one cannot always rely on what they see. Yamamoto calls for considering such situations from various points of view, suggesting that there may be doors on the planet that open into other dimensions and that they could be located in the ocean. Modern researchers, both of the Dragon Sea in Japan and of the Bermuda Triangle, have put forward the hypothesis of the existence of a UFO or UAP base in the depths of the ocean. These waters are very deep, and high volcanic activity complicates the detection of objects on the seabed. Thus, the existence of a UFO base in the Dragon Sea not far from Japan seems quite probable.